All right, welcome back to the Level Up and Live podcast. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, and around here, our mission is simple. Empower business owners and emerging leaders to design a life they don't grow to hate without sacrificing health, relationships, or spirituality. We do that through clarity, accountability, support, guidance, and community. And today's guest, she embodies all of that and more. Rebecca Barker is a wife, mom, entrepreneur, nonprofit founder, and the heart behind Barker Management and the Cut and Shoot Bulldogs. She's showing us what it looks like to lead with heart, hustle, and purpose. Let's dive in. Rebecca Barker, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you know how we roll with the Level Up Live Mastermind group. Hit us with that 1 minute intro.
Hi, guys. My name is Rebecca Barker. I am a wife and a mother of 4 children. I am the owner of Barker Management, and I'm the founder of a nonprofit youth sports league, the Cut and Shoot Bulldogs. We're local here in the Conroe, Montgomery County area.
Now, Rebecca, you sound like you've practiced that a couple times.
Yeah, thankfully from Level Up and Live.
Putting in the reps. That's awesome. I remember my first when we started doing the elevator pitches and everything, and I learned about it. I was like, oh, well, what does that even look like? And so I was ChatGPTing it, I was AIing it, and I was all over the place. So it's amazing why putting in the reps, the practice, what that can, the outcome of that, it flows, it's in rhythm.
Getting comfortable with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you just spoke is you hit the nail right on the head. So, but I always love doing this with business owners and entrepreneurs on the show. Before launching Barker Management, what were you doing before that? And at what moment or experience became the catalyst for stepping out on your own?
So I actually went back and forth. While I was an employee for a really long time doing bookkeeping, taxes, things like that. And I started my business in 2015, but I was still working a full-time job. And so I held that full-time job up until 2019. 2019 is when I finally actually went out on my own as a full-time entrepreneur instead of holding that W-2 job. And it was actually because of Cody. Like, I called Cody one day and I was like, hey, I'm just going crazy. I'm working this full-time job and I have my business, and I was terrified to let that 9 to 5 go. And Cody gave me a short sentence and he said, Rebecca, what would your company look like if you gave your company the same 40 hours a week that you give this job? And It took me probably 3 months of really that just burned in my brain for me to say okay, he's absolutely right. I had the business and I had clients, but I was scared to let go of that, steady income and really move into being an entrepreneur and the hustle of what that really looks like.
Man, I didn't know that about you. And that's a beautiful story, because what I'm hearing you say is that's what we all go through as human beings. Is there's self-doubt, there is fear, there of the unknown, Absolutely. Of the uncertainty. And you took that leap of faith, and by having, shout out to Cody, that empowerment, that he challenged you and then also believed in you. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a key component to getting to where you want to go and who you're wanting to becoming, is having those people around you to help you, Absolutely. and challenge you and hold you accountable. And it sounds like that was the catalyst for stepping out on your own. And what would be that one thing? So a business owner or an entrepreneur, emerging leader that is wanting to step out of their comfort zone, what would be that one tip or piece of advice that you would give them? Because you've been through that, you've embodied that, you've experienced that in your own life. And I know you're continuing to do that as well in your journey right now. And you're just continuously 1% better than you were yesterday, leveling up. But any tips Absolutely. Or advice in giving that person that may be fear of stepping into the unknown and having that faith to level up like you did?
I would say confidence in yourself, really, really gaining that confidence for who you are and what you're doing, because it was a lot easier to work for someone else than go out and sell yourself. And I don't know why that is, but that's something that I've learned is people are more susceptible to go out and sell someone else's business than their own. And so that's something that I really had to learn and practice. So I would say, like, if you're in that transition of really like thinking about going on your own, what I did personally was I built the foundation of the business first, and then made that leap, and got myself to a point where I knew that I was ready to sell myself. Whereas before I could go out and sell your business all day long. I could go out and sell someone else's business, and I was confident in all the things. But when it came to selling myself, I was less confident. I was, more resistant, rather than, and that's what it took for me, was that switch of believing in myself, knowing that I knew what I was doing. And I actually had spoke to Micah one time and I said, I'm probably less confident than I should be, but I'm growing all of those things. And that's Level Up and Live has helped me with a lot of that, going out and just being more confident around other business owners.
When you look back at your early days, what's that one personal belief or lesson for you that really shaped your direction in the last 5 to 10 years?
I would say I guess the biggest lesson for me was consistency.
Okay.
When you're inconsistent with things, it's a lot harder, right? Because you're in it for a little while and then you draw back, and then you're in it for a little while and then you draw back. So I feel like my biggest lesson is consistency. Like, make sure that you are consistent and accountable in everything that you do, because when you lose that consistency, you're taking steps backwards, so that's, I would say, one of my biggest lessons for sure.
I think that's why I like you so much, Rebecca, is because you continue to show up, you continue to show out, and consistency, resilience. Without it, I don't see how people make it. Resilience and consistency of showing up for church, showing up for our spouse, showing up for our kids, showing up for our business, our customers. That's what it takes.
Yes.
And the ones that do it when you don't feel like it, that's what stacks that discipline and that resilience. And I see you embody that. And I love that. I was telling Kendra the other day behind the scenes, I was like, man, of our members and guests, and we're really growing at Level Up and Live. And everybody, like you said, is just really pouring into each other and the value and helping each other and assisting each other. And I'm like, I always look at one thing. I don't listen to necessarily what people say, but I watch their actions. And you have always been one that's leaned in, with the guidelines and pouring into others, and stepped up to the plate with table leaders and just shown up and then communicated. You've embodied all these things that we're all about. And it's just such a beautiful, we need more leaders like you in this world. So I just really appreciate you and grateful for you, Rebecca.
Yeah. And I'm growing every day, I still find myself in, I just told you, saying like I'm less confident, than I probably should be. Like, I'm still growing, I'm still learning, and there's still so much more to come,
Yep.
So it's just kind of diving into each one of those, subjects that I know I need to grow in, so. If someone asked me in Level Up, they said, how do you get your business? Like, I don't have a website for Barker Management. And he said, how do you get business? I said, well, luckily it's all word of mouth. It's all referrals, And he goes, how do you run a business like that? And I was like, well, to be honest with you, like, I haven't needed a website, Do I think that it would benefit me? Absolutely. And it is something that I've started looking into, but from 2019 till now, I've had great growth in my company, that I haven't really even thought about it, you know? So now I'm expanding more to, you know, I guess you would say like the newer day and age, you know, having the website, people being able to do things electronically or, you know, I still am a very like in-person. I like to get to know my clients and, you know, what their wants and needs are and things like that. Like when you handle somebody's financial situations or, you know, taxes, things on. But I do understand the importance of that's something new on my to-do list.
Well, awesome. So you have helped a lot of individuals and small business owners with bookkeeping. But what are the biggest myths or misconceptions people have about bookkeeping?
I think it's overwhelming for a lot of people. And rather than just kind of diving into it, what a lot of people do is they get caught up in the startup of their business. Oh, I got to start. I got to make money. I got to this. I got to that. To where like a lot of their financial situation is put on hold at first. And so then what it becomes is an overwhelming feeling of what are my numbers? What am I making? Am I making money? Am I not making money? And so I think a lot of people almost like avoid that type of responsibilities in the startup of their company. To where, you know, later on, they really want to see those numbers. They really want to know what their company's running. And so that's why, like, my slogan is take away the stress of the bookkeeping mess. Because a lot of people almost like fear it. It's really weird, you know, and I think it has a lot to do with like IRS and dealing with compliance. But I think most of it is just the unknown, right? Like they don't understand compliance. They don't understand IRS. And so a lot of times it's more of like, it's fearful, you know? And so that's what I realized with new startup companies. They get going and they have the mindset of making money. But then it kind of, you know, starts coming to numbers. Well, where's my money going? What is it doing? How is it working for me? So those are the things that I kind of see with new startup companies.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're really good at what you do. And with business owners and entrepreneurs, when we start up that business, we typically have that why. I want to make money. I want to be my own boss. I want to financial freedom, time freedom, whatever that is for that business owner or emerging leader. And one of the things that I've learned is what I'm hearing you say is business owners and entrepreneurs, they stay in their lane and with what they're really good at and they make money. Right. And especially for the first 6 to 12 to 18 to 24 months, because without it, you know, you're not in business. And so it takes all this time, energy, and effort, and bookkeeping is the last thing that's on their mind. And I think that's one of the things that you're really good at. And that's what you enjoy doing and working with these small business owners is being able to take that away from them, that fear, that uncertainty away from them and team up with them for the ones that want to be able to relinquish that control. Because without that management of that cash flow, we both know it's only a matter of time. If you're in the negatives or you're breaking even for X amount of time, you know, that's just not sustainable. So making sure those books are managed, it goes a long ways.
Absolutely. I've told one of my clients, you know, we were talking, I said, do you want me to be your bookkeeper or do you want me to be your friend?
Yeah.
Your bookkeeper, I got some things, you know, but, you know, it's building a good relationship with them to where, like, as a bookkeeper, you become the person that holds them accountable, you know, because they look to you for the answers of where or what is it doing? And sometimes we have to tell people, hey, you know, you have a spending problem or you're living luxury when your company needs the finances, you know? And so sometimes we get put in that situation where we have to be honest and hold them accountable Right. And like where they spend their money is not so much our business, but when business owners come and they're like, man, I know I'm making money. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And we have to look at numbers. It's like, hey, you're living off of your company and living beyond your means, and it's hurting your business, So sometimes we have to be your bookkeeper instead of your friend, Yes, I can tell you what you want to hear all day long, but is that going to benefit your company? Probably not, So I've had to be in those situations too, where it's been down for them of, hey, you spent $30,000 on going out to eat this year, and then really breaking that number down for them and getting them to understand that if your company needs help, these are the things that you can change in your daily life that will benefit your company finances.
And I think that's what makes a great bookkeeper and management company like yourself is being able to have those hard conversations. Because at the end of the day, what I have learned as an entrepreneur myself is a lot of times, one, the pride and ego doesn't like to be challenged if you're a business owner, especially a strong personality. But at the end of the day, if they have somebody like you that comes in, hey, this is what I do. This is what I do for a living. This is what I'm really good at. That's why people pay me to do that, is to be able to have that accountability. And that's next level. That's a level up moment for that business owner to understand that and seek that. To me, that's wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could give anybody any piece of advice when building a business or structuring your company, it would be to pay yourself a check or, a weekly salary that you can live off of and stay within those means, no matter how much money the company is making. And yes, you can give yourself more, when the time comes, but structure it in that way. Because if your company has $20,000, $30,000 in the bank, that's not your money. You should pay yourself a paycheck and live within those means of that paycheck versus just living off of the company itself. So that's one thing that I really, really try to stress to my new business owners is structure it that way at first. So you don't get so comfortable with just spending business money. And then really structuring your life around living off of that paycheck, off of that set amount, versus, just having the freedom of whatever money is there.
What would you say the number one mistake you see with new business owners making when it comes to staying compliant or managing their finances?
I think it's just that, like what we kind of touched on is a lot of people, build that business. And a lot of times when they're just starting out, they only have one bank account and live off of the company finances, and then what happens is they're freely spending because the company has the money. And then sometimes the company hits a slow spot, or for some companies, they're seasonal,
Or taxes. Taxes come around. You got a $30,000 tax bill.
Exactly. And they think, oh, well, I went on vacation 6 times. I shouldn't owe taxes. That's not how it works. And so I feel like a lot of times they confuse that, Now I'm not saying there's not tax benefit to traveling for business and things like that. There absolutely is. But there is a better way to structure those finances versus just spending out of the company account. And I feel like that's one of the biggest mistakes that business owners make is they commingle their personal and their business rather than truly separating it. And a lot of times it will put them in a bind because they end up living beyond their means versus giving themselves an amount that they're comfortable with and the company can sustain. And then they end up, in financial trouble. Like, well, now my company needs this. Well, you've already pulled too much money out of it, So I feel like that's one of the biggest things. Compliance, a lot of times people will avoid compliance until the IRS letters or stuff like that starts rolling in. And then they're like, whoa, what's going on?
Too late at that point.
That's most of the time when we're hired.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Like a lot of people don't hire us when they start the business, which is something that I have realized in business, and a reason that I've rolled out my 3 new packages for startup companies, because I really want companies to start with a bookkeeper and start with the structure of the business first, and then go into the selling and the making money and all of that. So that way you're always compliant, and so that's something that within my company, I've started offering. I've always offered it, but really like putting together the packages of what business owners can choose from that fits their budget, while helping them from the very beginning of the business versus once they're already in trouble.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that's something you've been working on the last few weeks, and it's been your accountability with the Level Up Live group. And I think I saw something recently that you rolled that out. So I'm curious on being able to dive that in. Maybe we can even share that in the show notes as well, in those packages for people that are interested in seeing those. Somebody listening to this, emergency leader or business owner that's stressed out and they're overwhelmed and they're experiencing what you're saying. I need to get my books in order. I'm using QuickBooks, but I haven't logged in for 3 months, and I don't have QuickBooks. I'm using an Excel sheet, and I've got all these transactions, all this revenue coming in. How would you help them feel confident or in control if that person that's listening to the podcast right now?
So you have to start, right? Like start somewhere. Talk to somebody, hire somebody. If you can't, maybe just consult with somebody, and take the step of starting, because your finances are the most important, right? Like that's what we ultimately do it for, is either financial freedom or, just to be able to live comfortably. And so that's a very big, responsibility within a company, is to make sure that your finances are in order, that you really know, is your company making money? Is it sustainable on its own? So I would say, get started, dive into it. Even if it's only 20 minutes or an hour, 1 hour a day, take the time to just start digging. What do I need to do? Who can I talk to? A lot of people, even like me, like we'll consult you for free. We'll sit down with you and give advice on where you could start, even on your own, if you can't afford to hire us. But just give you guidance, and then maybe 1 hour a day, dedicating that time to it. Time blocking is something that I've learned from Level Up and Live, and I'm still working on it. I'm a work in progress. But over the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've really honed in on that. And I love the Level Up and Live Facebook post today about, just getting started, things like that. Like if it's 10 minutes, if it's 20 minutes, just put in a little bit of time every single day towards it, which goes back to the beginning of the podcast, that consistency, understanding what it takes for your business to be successful and consistently working at that.
And you definitely embody that. Would you say there's 1 or 2 systems that every small business owner should be implementing now to prevent that costly mistake later and for allowing it to add up? And what I mean by system or processes, because this, you've been on the webinar, the membership expert series and the mastermind group. When I think systems and processes for business owners that are listening to this, what is one thing that they can implement on a daily or even weekly basis that would prevent them from costly mistakes later? One thing that comes to mind for me is maybe logging into QuickBooks and, making sure that the transactions or the receipts are taking a picture of that digitally and putting it and uploading it. That would be just a system I would think about. But do you have any suggestions, 1 or 2 systems that you would recommend?
It's just getting a financial software in place, having those transactions all put into one place, understand what you're running. When we code our financial statements, some of our people that I was telling you about before, they personally use off of the company. And so we separate that out for them. And so for businesses, when you put your finances into a financial software, and a lot of them, they auto sync now. So you connect those bank accounts and it just bank feeds in, and yes, you do have to go code them out. But it will give you an idea of where your company really stands. And also, if you're looking for that, am I spending too much of my company money? It will show you just those, So it's where your money's going and what your profit margins are. Something that I realized is my profit margins and my labor are okay, but my profit margins are not as good as I would like them to be. And so that's something that I'm working on, is really honing in on what expenses I have, what is unnecessary, and then really building off of that. So I would say with business owners, it's very important to truly understand your finances and where your money's going, in order to be able to truly see, right? Because if you're not spending money personally, and your company is still having a problem, then okay, well, I need to start looking at how I bid a job. Right? Because I'm bidding this job and I may be bidding it low to get the job. But if you're not making any money and you're still struggling, why are you doing their jobs?
That's right.
And so your finances will really be able to tell you, hey, I'm not charging enough. What a lot of new business owners don't think about is overhead costs. So if you have an office, if you have a computer, if you have software fees, if you have all of these things that it takes to run your company outside of the, basically like if you're a landscaper and you do somebody's flower beds, yes, you could get that done for the labor and material, but what you don't consider is the overhead cost of your office staff, your rent, your computer software, all of those things. So maybe your profit margin is low, but you're not considering those things. So when you do bids, that overhead cost needs to be in every single bid. I'm not saying if your overhead cost is $20,000, charge it to the customer, but a little bit each bid. So you're still covering the operations of your company. And I feel like a lot of people miss that. They're like, well, my labor and material was this much, so I made $3,000 on it.
Nope.
Well, yeah, you did, but you paid your office lady.
That's right.
And you had to pay for your software to create their landscape design. And, you have all these other costs that came with that bid. So yes, you may have made money off the labor and material, but did you truly make a profit margin?
Man, that's pure gold advice right there. And I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't help by listening to you and then really breaking that down. I think it's so important to be able to dissect that in percentages and understand that and line item that, because if you don't, that's what's going to end up happening. You could make $1 million, but you're spending $1.1 million. And so you made no net profit. Right. And now you're upset and wonder why you have no money in the bank and you owe the IRS, $200,000 now. It's because of everything that what you're just saying. It's not managed. It's not viewed. You're not bringing awareness, or you're not being intentional about breaking that down. And that's, to me, that's when I think of bookkeeping and when I think of management and what you do, that is such a necessity and required for a successful business. And I'm just speaking to my version of myself right now. I have a lady that I've used for 10 plus years since I first started the business with 0 customers. And we've kind of grown together, who helps me with, the bookkeeping and the accounting and the payroll. And so that's one of the things that I've learned over time, is just being super aware of it, having a system and process for that. Because if you don't, it can really add up. And then within 6 to 12 months, make it come back and really bite you in the rear end. And then you're out of business, and
Absolutely.
And you want to be able to avoid that. One of the things I was going to mention for our listeners and audience and viewers, I don't know if you said you're kind of working through this as well, really changed the game for me. I listened to it about 5 years ago in my business, Profit First. Have you heard of that or listened to that podcast or read that book? Okay. Highly recommend anybody. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast, but it's called Profit First. So a lot of times business owners and entrepreneurs, they get into business for all these different reasons. And the last thing that they think about is what we're talking about today is managing their cash flow, managing your money, net income and putting money in the bank, reserves, emergency fund, all these different things. And then we don't end up paying ourselves, right? We've basically got another job. We're paying all of our bills. We're paying all of our employees. We're paying all of our overhead expenses, all the things that come with it, employment tax and income tax and all. And then we're like, man, we have nothing left. We have nothing left. And so what Profit First is said, it flips the script. So Profit First says you basically pay yourself first. So there's 4 to 5 different categories. It's Profit First. So basically it's profit. And so if you made $1,000, you put percentage of that for profit. So let's say you're starting business and let's say you're at 10, just for the sake of money, 2%. So 2% of $100, you're putting $2, in that bank account for your profit. Hey, congratulations, you made a $2 profit.
Right.
And then you do your overhead expense, and then you do your expenses. Then you do your owner's pay, which is what you've talked about earlier, your salary. So you have these different percentages, and I encourage anybody listening to this to listen to the podcast. It's Profit First, and there's even a book on it. It's Mike, and I can't ever pronounce his last name. But man, it really changed the game for me, and it really broke down those percentages for me as an entrepreneur to really be able to, not invest 100% of my funds back into the business. And sure, everybody's goals are different listening to this, but the whole point of what we're talking about in Barker Management, bookkeeping and managing your funds, what is the goal of those funds? Are you in stealth mode, growth mode? Do you want to pour all those funds back into it 100% and grow really quickly? Okay, cool. At least you know what you're doing. But 95% of the people listening to this, they don't have a clue. They're not clear on what they want their funds and their money to do.
And I tell you right now, a lot of that is what leads to burnout.
Yes.
When you are reinvesting into your company, and I'm not saying don't, but when you're 100% everything you've made back into your company, years of doing that, you're like, what am I doing this for?
Yep.
What am I really building this company for? And then it makes you question that,
Yes.
So always make sure that you are living, but that's why I stress living within your means.
Yes.
Because that's a very important part, while also understanding that if you continue and just reinvest every single thing into your business, you're spending hours upon hours building and growing and structuring this company, but you're not making anything off of it, it's going to end in a burnout, and so that's why I stress for them to really pay themselves a weekly salary, a biweekly or a monthly something, and really separate those two, and still have the benefit of why are you in business? Oh, it pays me. I make money off of it. To where when you're reinvesting and you're like, all my money is gone, I'm just putting it back into this company, it does lead to the burnout. And that's what we want to avoid in entrepreneurs.
Yes. Agreed. Hit the nail right on the head. I want to shift gears a little bit. Community impact. I want to make sure we cover Cut and Shoot Bulldogs. And my question for you and on this topic and transitioning into this is Cut and Shoot Bulldogs is more than just football and cheer. What's the deeper mission behind that? You mind sharing the why?
So it's kind of a, I don't know. It's weird, Sean. I'm still learning that, but, so basically, like, my husband is very sports oriented, and my childhood growing up, I always wanted to influence children. And I thought for the longest time that I was going to be a teacher. you know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's not like as a very young kid. And that's not really where life took me, you know? And so when we started, I realized that not only were we impacting our community, but we found our purpose, mine and my husband's. It gave us the sports side, which is something that he loves and enjoys. And it gave me the interaction with our youth and really being able to pour into them. And so we found something that fulfilled us in ways that no money or anything else could fulfill.
Wow.
And while we're doing it, we realize the crazy positive impact that we have been able to bring to the community. And so, you know, that is what we have built the foundations of the Cut and Shoot Bulldogs on.
Wow. And that right there is a mission in itself, and you just execute it. So I would say it's pretty much formulating your mission.
Absolutely. And I didn't, at the time of starting it, I had no idea. Some neighbors had posted on our group page and was like, hey, we're starting a football league out here in Cut and Shoot. And so we actually brought our son to sign him up. We had no idea. At the time, they were called the Conroe Longhorns. And so we did that and we brought him, and it was horrible. There was no doubt about it. It was unorganized. It was not for the children, which is what we wanted it to be at the time for our son. And, you know, so we started building, and we had all these kids coming, and they were like, we want to play. We want to, you know, do all this stuff. And so me and my husband became, again, that consistency. We showed up. We you know, trained them. We started pouring into them, you know. And then after the first year, we realized, wow, this actually fuels a bigger passion for the both of us than we actually even intended for it to. And then realized the bigger picture of what we were doing within the community.
Wow. Well, and that's true entrepreneurship. You're here to solve a problem. You saw something that you were completely against, which is some of these kids that can't afford to come out here and do the things that they want to do. So you put this nonprofit together, and you and your husband, and y'all have built this, and now it's fulfilling you and living a purpose-driven life. And it's aligned with what it is that you're doing and giving back to the community. How would you say serving your community and what you've done the last couple of years shaped you as a leader and who you're becoming in this journey?
I would say it's definitely, so our slogan for the Bulldogs is show up. And that goes back to consistency. Because you have to show up for them kids. You have to train them kids. On your worst days, your sick days, your not good days, your mom in the hospital days, it doesn't matter, right? Like those kids are expecting you to be there. Yeah. And so that's something that has really pushed me. Also seeing the impact that we have on our youth, you know, that has transformed me into a better leader, a better mother, I would say, you know, more intentional with listening and speaking. Because you don't, a lot of children, they actually listen more when it's not coming from their parent. And I know it's so crazy, but it's just the reality of it. And so it really makes you understand that the things that you say, they have a huge impact. Yeah. And so it's really being like that positive leader for them, versus, you know, a lot of people are just out there, you know, kick the ball or, you know, punt the ball or whatever the case is, versus really being able to lead and guide. And so I feel like wholeheartedly, it's made me a better leader for sure.
Rebecca Barker, I know this is probably the longest that me and you have gotten to really build, you know, talk and speak and have a conversation and ask each other. Well, me ask you questions, but man, you're just a really awesome human being. Has anybody ever told you that?
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I mean that. And I genuinely and authentically mean that. And I think, you've always leaned in and you embody everything that you're saying. So, and God has put me on this earth, being a child of God. One of the gifts that he has given me and Kendra is we see the realness in people. And you can tell when people show up and when they speak and are they living an authentic life or are they masking something? So with you, you're leaning in. And like you said, you're an imperfect action taker. We get that. I get that. I'm an imperfect action taker too, but giving each other grace and doing these things that our creator has called us to do and give back. And especially with a young generation like you and your husband are doing, and the beautiful thing it's like who you're becoming in this journey, and you're surrounding yourself with like-minded business owners and emerging leaders on this same journey that's aligned with your values and similar interests. And it just excites me. I get chills just thinking about it and speaking about it clearly.
Love it.
I'm curious.
Well, thanks for having me, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we wrap up, I wanted to get this question in here. What's the bigger vision for you that you're building towards? Like, what does the Rebecca Barker 2.0 look like from a year from now, 12 months from now? What does she look like?
I would say I'm really focused on being more of that leader. So the transition that I'm going through in my company is being able to get out of the driver's seat is what I say. I can't say that I have like huge control issues, but I built the company off of like myself, and I have a great team of people. And so I would say the 2.0 version of me is really being able to step out of the driver's seat and be a leader.
Yes.
Within my Barker Management. I've done a really, really good job with that, with the Bulldogs, being able to delegate and trust people and put people in place to run it without me. So yes, we are the heart and soul behind it, but the hands-on, we have good people in place that help and are committed. And I have that in my office. So I would say the 2.0 version of me is actually leaning into them and becoming a better leader to step out of the driver's seat and my company to really be structured in a way that can run with those systems and processes.
Beautifully said, Rebecca Barker. Well, it's not if, but when that happens, you're going to be listening to this 12 months from now and go, oh man, that was a beautiful milestone. I've already crushed that and executed that. I have removed myself from the driver's seat. Well, Rebecca, I just want to say thank you. Your leadership, both in business and in your community, is the kind of leader that we need in this world and we need more of. So whether it's helping small business owners find that financial clarity or creating a safe and inspiring space for kids to grow, you're walking out your calling. So thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for saying yes.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. With that being said, how can our community at Level Up and Live, how can we support you? How can we pour back into you? You have been nothing but valuable today and been vulnerable. And I know that our audience, viewers, and listeners are going to get nothing but value. So how can we support you?
I would say really just, follow the Bulldog community, and possibly, if it goes into like building my company, I said earlier, we are offering 3 new packages. So you could support in that way. I really don't ask for as much support for my business as I do my nonprofit. We run strictly off of donations and stuff like that. So the more support for our youth that we can get, that's where we want to be, So any help or anything like that. My ultimate goal and stuff that I haven't shared with very many people is my ultimate goal of the Bulldogs is to eventually have a sports complex in Cut and Shoot, Texas.
Nice.
And so anything and everything that can help us grow. I know it's not going to happen overnight, but I will tell you this short, quick story. When I moved into my neighborhood, there was a kid, he was about 12 years old, and he would walk the neighborhood every night about 9-10 o'clock. And so one day I stopped him. I said, hey, why do you walk so late every night? And he said, well, I'm a very troubled child, and I stole from my stepmom, and she wouldn't let me, in the house until she gets home from work. And so fast forward 3 years later, he was 15 years old. He was in jail for burglary, drugs, all types, auto theft at 15. And I told my husband, I said, if I could have just took that kid, and I'm not saying I could have changed his life, but if I could have gave him a different outlet in life. And so that's been our mission. Like, we want somewhere that these kids can go and play sports or just pour their time and energy into something positive versus finding those drugs and walking the streets at night with nothing else to do but rob houses, And so that's our mission and goal. And that kid, Eric, I pray for him every single day. And I just want other kids to be able to have that safe haven to go to. And it's not something that you have to open the doors or none of that. No, you go to the football field and there's, you hit baseball, whatever the case is. Having something in our area for the kids that can't afford it, the ones that, are walking the streets at night. So, that's something that really, really touched our heart and kind of guided us to what our bigger plan is.
Well, you guys are embodying that, you and your husband doing this together, bigger than yourselves. And even at church, they teach us that. It's like, you need to have a mission for you and your husband, and you to the Barker family embody that. It's, you've gotten out of yourself and you're striving towards that mission. And I resonate that. And I know my wife as well, Kendra, it's something bigger than ourselves. And you guys are giving back to your community. And it's not if, but when. Maybe doesn't happen overnight. Maybe it's not in 6 months. Maybe it's not in 12. Maybe it's not in 2 years, 3 years. Doesn't matter. You keep applying these same principles and fundamentals. And for this bigger cause, this bigger purpose, this bigger calling, it's not if, but when. The right people, the right, are going to come into your life and who you're going to become in this journey as well. So beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that, Rebecca. And I'm excited to be on this journey with you. So outside of that, okay, folks, go follow Rebecca Barker, show her some love and support what she's building. And if this conversation moved you, you already know your next step is to join the Level Up and Live community. Lean in. We've got a 4-week, 1-month free trial open right now. Links in the show notes for easy access, and we'll see you on the inside. Level Up and Live. Thanks, Rebecca.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.